portals between worlds, the call of the ancient stones. Previously, the revelation Nevem made on that banquet night was not merely about himself. It was about the nature of time, about what it means to guard wisdom important enough to justify the price paid to preserve it. A man who had treated Jacobus Stewart when the boy was a child, and who today bears the same appearance as he did then. A man who chose to remain, not out of vanity or fear of death, but because there was knowledge that would die with him if he died. Knowledge the world would need at a moment he could not predict with precision, only await. The prophecy he pronounced at the close of that night was not a declaration about the future. It was a summoning into the present. The chosen of sea, land, and sky, converging to face the awakening of something that had slept for ages beyond counting. Not metaphor, a map. In this new episode, we will discover together how Alexander did not choose the dream that came to him that night. The dream chose him. And when he woke, the question was not whether he should believe what he had seen. It was that the ancestor had been too explicit, too precise, too specific by name for there to be any room for reasonable doubt. Stonehenge, Iuda, the sacred mountains, a portal that is neither metaphor nor symbol, but real spiritual technology, operated by those who know the protocols that time has buried but not destroyed. The prophetic visions Iuda will share in that assembly at the altitudes where the veil grows thin. Wars unleashed by the greed to possess Excalibur, cities reduced to ash, generations lost, will not be prophecies of an inevitable future. They will be warnings of a possible future that can still be closed, replaced, redirected, if the right choices are made by the right people at the precise moment the cosmos summons them. And the solution that will emerge will be at once audacious and simple, because the solutions that work always are, to found a new Amesbury on the plains near Stonehenge, where the portal will serve as guardian and where Edith will discover that distance from her son need not be distance at all, that love sufficient finds the portals available. The silence after the celebration. The banquet had ended. The embers of the bonfires still crackled softly, and Alexander, lying in Edith's room with Helena asleep at his side, knew, with that certainty that requires no reason, that the night had not yet ended. The central square of the village, which only hours before had bustled with the vibrant energy of dozens of people gathered together, now presented a stillness that was almost sacred, punctuated only by the soft crackling of the last embers and by the distant murmur of residents who had improvised their beds in the open air, unable to fully leave behind that magical atmosphere of communion that only emerges when people who have survived impossible things together come together and allow the joy of return to be completely felt. Edith's house, built of stone and wood with the artisanal care typical of those ancient lands, radiated a sense of home that warmed the hearts of all who crossed its threshold with that particular quality belonging to homes built with enough love for love itself to become part of the structure. Through the half-open window, the silver light of the moon poured across the wooden floor like liquid mercury, while the soft fragrance of the herbs Edith cultivated drifted delicately into the room. And to you who accompanies this crossing, who enters with us this territory, where portals are not metaphors, where dreams are not merely dreams, where the past visits the present with purposes the present cannot yet fully see, I leave a simple but essential request. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your comment sharing what you feel. Each gesture of yours is a flame that joins the others, strengthening the invisible current that unites hearts across time and across the mysteries that await revelation. In doing so, you not only support this work, you become part of this tapestry. The story continues, and it is your presence that keeps the fire alive. Helena fell asleep almost instantly, her body relaxing into the complete trust of that safe refuge, her breathing becoming rhythmic and calm as the tides that obey lunar cycles. Alexander, lying at her side, watched for a few moments the serene face of his beloved before feeling his eyelids grow irresistibly heavy. But there was in that heaviness a quality different from ordinary exhaustion. It was as though it were not merely muscles yielding to rest, but something more fundamental yielding to something greater, as if a door that normally remained closed had, on that specific night, decided to open. The sleep that took hold of Alexander was no common sleep. His eyes closed to the physical world of the small coastal village, and simultaneously opened to realities far more vast. Without perceiving the transition, like one who crosses the threshold between two rooms of the same house, he found himself in a place his waking consciousness had never visited, yet which his soul recognized with a familiarity that was at once unsettling and comforting, as though a forgotten part of himself, dormant for countless years, were finally beginning to awaken, bringing with it memories that belonged not to this life alone, but to a legacy far deeper. The awakening in the sacred circle. Alexander was lying on the ground, not in a bed, not in Edith's room, but upon the firm earth of a place that was simultaneously the strangest and the most recognizable he had ever inhabited. An irregular stone served as his pillow beneath his head. Above, the night sky stretched like an infinite parchment upon which the gods wrote their messages in ink of starlight, and the constellations did not remain static as in the waking world, but moved in deliberate cosmic dance, forming geometric patterns that pulsed with meanings he could feel without yet being able to translate. The way one hears a word in an unknown tongue, and the body recognizes the tone before the mind finds the meaning. Raising his head slightly, he took in the surroundings. Enormous stone monoliths rose around him, forming a perfect circle that seemed to have been planted there by primordial giants. Each vertical stone, its surfaces worn by millennia and covered with silver lichens that glimmered faintly beneath the starlight, radiated a presence that was almost conscious. Not the consciousness of animals that move and breathe, but the older, slower consciousness of things that have existed long enough to develop perspective on all that passes before them. Atop these megalithic columns, horizontal stones connected them two by two, forming portals that framed specific portions of the firmament, and Alexander understood intuitively that this arrangement was no accident, but an instrument of incomparable astronomical precision, a cosmic calendar that marked not merely the passage of linear time, but the propitious moments for crossing the curtains between dimensions. The light that arrived suddenly did not hurt the eyes. It was a luminosity that seemed to emanate from a source transcending the physical spectrum of known light, as if the very fabric of reality had been torn, allowing the pure essence of consciousness to pour through the dimensional rift. The light pulsed with a life of its own, expanding and contracting like the breath of a living being, and within its radiant core, a form began to materialize. Alexander felt his heart quicken, not with fear, but with a recognition that arose from layers of his soul he had not known existed. A recognition that crossed the barriers of time and forgetting with the certainty of one who encounters a person they have always known, yet from whom they were separated long enough for the separation to feel permanent. It was the ancestor. Not in the merely genealogical sense of a few short centuries, but a progenitor who traced back to immemorial ages when humanity still walked with one foot in the material world and the other in the spiritual dimensions. His eyes, deep as wells of wisdom accumulated across countless existences, fixed upon Alexander with an intensity that seemed to read not merely his present thoughts, but the entire history of his soul across multiple incarnations. The bond between them was not one of blood alone, it was one of purpose, of mission, of destiny, intertwined across the centuries like a golden thread woven into the loom of time. "Rise!" A voice that resonated not only in the ears, but directly at the center of the chest, an authority that transcended human hierarchies and could not be questioned because it belonged to a category that precedes any possible questioning. Alexander felt his body respond instantly, as though his muscles obeyed an ancestral programming that preceded his conscious will. On his feet, posture straight and alert, every sense sharpened. The ancestor began to circle slowly around the inner perimeter of the stone circle, his movements fluid and deliberate, each step marking the sacred ground with a ritualistic intention that Alexander recognized without having learned, like a melody the body knows before any lesson has taught it the notes. Listen well, for I will not repeat these words. Revelations of the Dimensional Portal. The ancestor extended his translucent hand, pointing toward the megalithic stones that surrounded them. And in his gesture was that specific quality belonging to teachers who do not impart facts, but reveal structures the student has always felt to exist without ever having been able to name. This place is not merely a monument raised by human hands. The ancestor's voice carried layers of meaning that arrived not through words alone, but through tone, through cadence, through the way each syllable seemed to settle into a specific place within Alexander's consciousness. It is a portal between worlds, a dimensional gateway that connects multiple realities simultaneously. And more than that, it is also a sacred tomb, a repository of souls awaiting the propitious moment to return. Alexander absorbed the words with every fiber of his being, feeling that he was not receiving new information, but remembering something he had always known, something that had been covered by layers of ordinary life, the way earth covers a seed that awaits the right condition to germinate. The notion that this place could be simultaneously portal and tomb did not strike him as contradictory. It struck him as profoundly correct, for where a passage between dimensions exists, death and rebirth exist also, ending and beginning. The cycle that no civilization has escaped because it is inscribed in the very structure of existence. The people who lived in these surroundings in ancient ages, the ancestor continued, possessed an understanding of death that the moderns have nearly completely lost. They buried their dead in the forests surrounding the monument, believing that in doing so, they granted the departed the sacred privilege of rising again in glory when the time determined by the cosmic cycles arrived. Alexander looked beyond the circle of stones toward the dark forest that surrounded them, and understood that those ancient trees were not merely vegetation, they were silent guardians of countless forgotten tombs, each root intertwined with the bones of warriors, priests, kings, and queens who rested there in the Sheol, the sacred sleep that was not true death, but a prolonged pause in waking consciousness, a suspension of individual awareness in favor of temporary union with the universal cosmic consciousness. Those who entered the Sheol did not die. They waited in a timeless limbo until conditions were ripe for their return to the manifested world, bringing with them the wisdom accumulated during their sojourn in the higher dimensions. The ancestor turned his gaze to the starlit sky with the reverence of those who understand that the stars are not distant objects, but active participants in something that wholly exceeds any astronomy that can be learned in any academy. Here there exists a dimensional portal, he revealed, his form shining with renewed intensity, used since time immemorial by mystics who sought to transcend the limitations of time and space, by druids who walked between worlds with the same ease with which an ordinary man crosses from one room of his house to another, and also by a handful of time travelers who had mastered the secret arts of temporal and dimensional manipulation. In that moment, like a bolt of sudden understanding, Alexander grasped into which of these categories the ancestor was to be placed. Not a ghost in the traditional sense, nor a projection of memory, but an authentic traveler of time, a being who had transcended the linear limitations of temporal existence and could move freely through the ages. I possess the power to transport not only my physical form, but also my consciousness across dimensions. My physical body exists in another era, in a place entirely different from this island. Yet my consciousness has crossed the curtains of time to find you here, in this dream that is not merely a dream, but a reality as valid as the one in which you sleep at Helena's side. Unable to contain the most pressing of his curiosities, Alexander asked, "What place is this? What is the name of this sacred circle?" The ancestor smiled with an expression that blended pedagogical satisfaction with respect for genuine curiosity. "You find yourself at one of the astral magnetic centers of the Earth, a point of convergence where the lines of force that traverse the planet like invisible veins cross one another, forming vortices of incomparable power. And like this one, thousands of such places are scattered across the entire planet, each serving as an acupuncture point on the energetic body of Gaia." Alexander mentally envisioned a global network of sacred sites, all interconnected through invisible lines of energy, a planetary geometry of staggering proportions, and the idea that the Earth possessed its own energetic system, analogous to the meridians in the human body, expanded his understanding of the living, conscious nature of the planet he inhabited in a way that no verbal explanation could ever have achieved without this direct experience of standing inside the circle, feeling the tingling pulse beneath his palms when he pressed them against the stone. The magnetic heart of the Earth. "These stones you see," the ancestor continued, touching lightly one of the megalithic surfaces with a reverence that was not performance, but genuine recognition of something that deserved to be recognized, "were not simply found and dragged here by ordinary human effort. They were selected with scientific and spiritual precision by forces far greater than current human understanding can encompass. Each stone possesses a specific mineral composition that resonates at particular frequencies, and the exact positioning of each monolith was calculated with a sacred mathematics that incorporates knowledge of astronomy, geometry, quantum physics, and transcendental metaphysics." Alexander ran his hand across the rough surface of one of the nearby stones, feeling a subtle tingling beneath his palms, as though the rock were alive and pulsing with its own energy, confirming the ancestor's words not through reason, but through direct experience that no reasoning could ever entirely invalidate afterward. "In the right time," said the ancestor, "when humanity reaches an adequate level of evolution, the spiritual maturity necessary to vibrate at the correct frequency of consciousness, the true secrets of these sacred sites will be revealed. Until then, they will remain wrapped in mystery, protected by the very incomprehension of those who are not yet ready to wield knowledge of such magnitude." Alexander understood that there was protective wisdom in this partial concealment, for certain knowledge in the wrong hands, or even in the right hands at the wrong moment, could generate more destruction than illumination. "But you, Alexander," the ancestor said, fixing his luminous eyes directly upon his descendants, "have been chosen to receive fragments of this knowledge now, because your soul carries a specific mission that requires understanding of truths that remain hidden to most. The times that approach will demand of you and your companions a courage and wisdom that can only be forged in the crucible of deep comprehension about the multidimensional nature of reality." Alexander felt the weight of responsibility settle upon his shoulders. Yet rather than fear, he felt strangely strengthened, as though a dormant part of himself were finally awakening to fulfill a purpose for which it had prepared across many lives that his conscious mind could not remember, but which his soul had never forgotten. The ancestor stopped abruptly and turned to face Alexander directly, with that quality of attention that admits no distraction, that summons the complete presence of whoever receives it. "Listen well, for I will not repeat these words. When you awaken from the sleep that is not sleep, you will bear the sacred charge of summoning those whose names I will now speak. Nevem, the druid who comprehends the hidden languages of nature. Hael, the warrior whose heart beats with ancestral honor. Makeda and Amina, guardians of wisdoms from distant lands beyond the seas. Edith, the mother whose love transcends physical separations. And Helena, your companion of soul whose destiny is entwined with yours in ways that are only beginning to reveal themselves. Upon hearing each name, Alexander saw briefly the corresponding image of each person blaze in the air before him, as if the cosmos itself were confirming the choice of each participant in this collective mission being revealed through the mist of time and destiny. All those named, the ancestor continued, his voice acquiring a tone of solemn urgency, must be summoned by you to journey together to the sacred mountains, that place where the earth rises toward the heavens as if seeking to touch the face of the gods. There, at the altitudes where the air is thin and consciousness expands naturally, Iuda awaits you, Edith's son and guardian of ancestral wisdom transmitted through unbroken lineages of illuminated masters. The mention of Iuda's name sent a dart of recognition through Alexander. He had heard Edith speak of her son with a mixture of maternal pride and spiritual reverence that indicated he was far more than an ordinary man. Excalibur, the ancestor then said, and at the pronouncing of that name, the very quality of the air within the circle changed. It grew denser, more charged, as before a storm that brings something that is not merely rain, has been showing signs and omens that difficult days are coming. It pulses and vibrates in ways that only occur when great turbulences draw near on the temporal horizon. Perhaps not in your immediate time, Alexander, but in the near future, should the omens be confirmed, the sword will make itself present in more manifest fashion in this dimension, and what happens then will depend on what is done now. The summoning to the sacred mountains. The ancestor began to diminish his luminosity gradually, like a flame preparing to extinguish itself, signaling that the time of that dream encounter was drawing toward its close, with the inevitability of things that end not by the will of either party, but because the time they had was precisely the time they were given. Remember everything that has been said here, Alexander. The voice came now from farther away, like the echo of a deep well whose bottom cannot be seen. When you awaken, it may seem that it was merely a dream, but your heart will know the truth. The urgency you will feel upon opening your eyes will not be the fruit of fantasy, but the authentic call of destiny summoning the chosen to their posts of service. Do not hesitate, do not doubt, do not delay. Gather those named and march to the sacred mountains where Iuda awaits you, for every moment of delay may cost more than you can imagine. The ancestor's form grew ever more translucent, merging with the starlight that bathed the circle of stones, until only his voice remained, echoing as though it came from very far away and from a long time past. Go with my blessing, beloved son of an ancient and noble lineage. May the light guide you through the shadows that are yet to come. Alexander awoke with a sudden start, heart pounding, cold sweat covering his brow despite the mild temperature of the room, with that brief disorientation of one who has returned from a place more real than the place to which they have returned. For a moment, he did not know where he was, his consciousness still partially anchored in the circle of stones and in the luminous presence of the ancestor. Then, the present reality reasserted itself. Edith's house, Helena asleep at his side with her face serene. But the dream did not dissipate as ordinary dreams do when exposed to the light of waking. On the contrary, it remained vivid, crystalline, every detail preserved with a clarity that surpassed even memories of real events lived in full waking consciousness. The specific quality of experiences that refuse to be treated as dreams, that insist upon their own reality. Helena woke shortly after, opening her eyes and finding immediately Alexander's intense gaze fixed upon her. Even without words, she perceived that something had changed, that her beloved carried new weight on his shoulders, a resolution in his eyes that had not been present the night before. Alexander, what happened? You are different. He took her hands between his, feeling the need to connect with her physically before sharing the revelations he had received. With a calm voice imbued with a new authority, he recounted the entire encounter with the ancestor, every detail of the circle of stones, every word spoken, every revelation received. Helena listened without interrupting, her eyes widening gradually in growing comprehension, recognizing the deep truth in Alexander's words not through reason, but through the resonance those truths awakened in her own soul, with that quality of recognitions that arrive from without, yet confirm what was always within. When Alexander finished his account, a profound silence hung between them, not empty, but heavy with shared meaning. At last, Helena spoke with a steady voice. "Then we must depart immediately for the sacred mountains. There is no time to lose." The awakening and the journey begun. There are people who require evidence before they act, and there are those who act because they recognize, and recognition is enough. The group Alexander summoned that morning was entirely of the second kind. When all had gathered in Edith's main room, Nevem and Hael arriving promptly, sensing in Alexander's message an urgency that admitted no delay, Alexander shared everything that had been revealed during the dream encounter with the ancestor. He had expected skepticism, questions, perhaps that particular expression of people who hear something extraordinary and who, before accepting it, must demonstrate that they are not naive. What he found was immediate acceptance and readiness for the journey, not credulity, but the kind of openness belonging to people who have lived enough to know that their categories of the possible were smaller than the reality they had encountered. Nevem simply nodded and murmured with the authority of one who is not agreeing because asked, but confirming what he has always known. "I always knew this day would come. The signs have been multiplying. The stars have been whispering warnings that only the initiated can hear. We will depart at dawn tomorrow after the necessary preparations." The remainder of that day was consumed in practical and spiritual preparations. Provisions packed, pack animals readied, instruments checked. Nevem conducted a ceremony of blessing and protection, invoking the ancestral forces and the spirits of the earth to guard the travelers. Circles of salt traced, sacred herbs burned, ancient chants in nearly forgotten tongues echoing through the village with that quality of sounds that do not merely communicate, but transform the space in which they resound, making it a different kind of space, charged with collective intention that no physical object could replicate. When night fell again, everything was ready. Alexander lay beside Helena for the last time in that place which had been a temporary refuge, knowing that when the sun rose, they would be marching toward a destination that would irrevocably transform their lives, and perhaps the fate of all Brittany and beyond. The journey to the sacred mountains lasted 3 full days, crossing undulating plains covered in purple heather, fording crystalline streams that sang ancient melodies over beds of polished stones, ascending gradually through ever-narrowing valleys where the mountain slopes began to rise dramatically toward the sky. With each mile traveled, Alexander felt the energy of the place intensify, as if the very air grew denser with spiritual meaning, laden with a presence invisible yet palpable, the specific quality of places that have been inhabited by sacred intention long enough for that intention to become part of the place itself, no longer removable even if those who deposited it have long since departed. Nevem remarked several times upon the ley lines he could feel pulsing beneath their feet, currents of telluric energy flowing through the earth like subterranean rivers of vital force, all converging toward the sacred mountains that now rose majestically before them, their summits shrouded in eternal mists that seemed to belong more to the realm of dreams than to ordinary material reality. The arrival at the sacred mountains. The arrival at the foot of the mountains at the twilight of the 3rd day was not an arrival at a place. It was an arrival at a state. The kind of transition the body feels before any other part of itself has processed what is happening. An ancient path, paved with stones that had been touched by millions of pilgrim feet across the centuries, wound its way up the mountain toward structures they could glimpse vaguely through the descending mist. Hooded figures appeared like phantasmal apparitions, silent guardians who protected the sanctity of that place from profane intruders. But when Nevem stepped forward and pronounced certain words in an ancient tongue with the fluency of one who has not learned but remembered, the figures immediately bowed in reverent respect and opened the way. Alexander perceived that those guardians were not simply ordinary men performing a function. They were initiates in profound mysteries, warrior monks whose dedication to the protection of that sanctuary had transcended obligation to become a sacred vocation that gave meaning and purpose to every breath of their existence. As they ascended the winding path, the atmosphere grew progressively more rarefied, not merely in terms of physical oxygen, but in the material density of reality itself. It was as though, with each step, they were passing through subtle layers that separated the common world from the sacred world, gradually penetrating spheres of existence where the laws of ordinary physics began to yield, allowing the miraculous and the quotidian to coexist without contradiction. Helena held Alexander's hand firmly, her fingers interlaced with his not only in affection, but out of a need for mutual anchoring as they navigated together through that subtle yet undeniable dimensional transition. Edith climbed with steps driven as much by maternal love as by spiritual strength. Her son Iuda was at the summit, and that certainty made each step impossible not to take. When the darkness of night had settled completely, and the stars punctuated the firmament with an intensity almost supernatural in the thin atmosphere of the high altitudes, they arrived at the broad plateau where a complex of stone structures rose, blending human architecture with natural rock formations so harmoniously that it was impossible to say where one ended and the other began. Soft light emanated from the windows, not the yellowish light of ordinary torches, but a silver luminosity that seemed to issue from sources transcending material combustion. And at the main entrance of the central building, a tall, upright figure waited. Even before Edith released her soft cry of recognition and ran toward that figure, Alexander knew. It was Iuda. The embrace between mother and son was deeply moving in its intensity, Edith shedding tears of joy and relief, Iuda murmuring soft words of comfort with the tenderness of those who love sufficiently to let those they love depart to do what they must do, and who carry within that love the patience of waiting. When they finally separated, Iuda turned his attention to the other visitors, and Alexander felt the weight of that penetrating gaze, seeing not merely surface features, but the essences of souls. Welcome. Your arrival was expected and foretold. The stars announced your coming. Tonight is for rest and restoration. Tomorrow, the challenges. The assembly and the prophetic visions. The circular chamber at the heart of the stone complex was impressive not through ornament, but through the absence of ornament. Bare walls of living rock polished to shine like marble, a vaulted ceiling bearing ancient symbols that seemed to pulse with their own light, and at the exact center of the floor, a circle of translucent crystal through which they could see subterranean waters flowing in deep currents, as though they were suspended above a river of the underworld. Stone seats, worn by centuries of use yet still firm, encircled that central circle in an arrangement that privileged no position over any other, indicating that here all were equal before the mysteries that were to be contemplated. Iuda began by establishing context with that pedagogy of revelations that does not pour but conducts, that leads the listener to understand before declaring that there is something to understand. The world is undergoing a transition that occurs in cycles measured in thousands of years. These are not changes that complete themselves over the course of an individual human life. They are gradual processes that extend across generations, invisible to those whose consciousnesses are imprisoned in the myopia of immediacy, yet crystalline to those trained to see the larger patterns governing the cosmic dance of planetary evolution. And we find ourselves now at a critical point in this cycle, a temporal portal where choices made or left unmade will reverberate through the centuries to come. He paused with the weight of a statement that requires no dramatism because it is already dramatic in itself. Excalibur has been displaying behaviors that the guardians of its lineage recognize as omens. The sword vibrates and pulses in ways that only occur when great tribulations draw near. Not necessarily wars in the conventional sense, but conflicts far deeper and more devastating. Wars of consciousness, clashes between dying ancient paradigms and emergent ones struggling to be born. Then Iuda closed his eyes and extended both hands over the crystal circle, initiating a chant in a tongue that none of those present recognized, yet which all of them felt resonate in a deep place within their souls, as though it were a language predating the separation of tongues, a primordial idiom that spoke directly to the collective subconscious of humanity. The crystal began to shine with growing intensity, and images began to form upon its translucent surface, visions rising from deep waters with the unsettling clarity of things that have not yet happened, but which the present carries as possibility within itself the way a seed carries the tree before any shoot has appeared. The visions were terrifying in their precision. Armies from several continents fighting with bestial ferocity for the power to possess Excalibur, erroneously believing that mere physical possession of the sword would grant them absolute dominion. Entire cities reduced to ash, rivers running red with the blood of countless dead, orphaned children wandering through smoldering ruins crying out for parents who would never return. Everywhere, the distorted energy of greed and the desire for power consuming everything like a black fire that devoured not only bodies but souls as well. The kind of devastation that cannot be rebuilt with stone and timber because what was destroyed was not physical. Edith covered her mouth with both hands. Helena gripped Alexander's hand with painful force. Each of those present found in the visions the echo of something they had feared without knowing how to name it. Now named, now visible, now impossible to ignore. When the visions finally dissipated and the crystal returned to its inert translucency, a silence heavy as lead filled the chamber. Iuda opened his eyes slowly, and all could see that tears ran down his face, not from weakness, but from deep compassion for a humanity that seemed so determined to walk repeatedly towards self-destruction. "These visions," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "do not represent a fixed and inevitable future, but a possibility, a potential path that will manifest should certain conditions be met and certain choices be made or left unmade. Our purpose here is to determine what actions we may undertake to close that future path and open others more luminous." The solution revealed. After a period of contemplative silence during which each person present inwardly processed the terrifying visions, Iuda spoke again, this time with a voice that carried not despair but measured and realistic hope. The specific hope of people who see the problem completely and who, for that very reason, can also see the solution. There is a solution. The three words fell upon the silence of the chamber like a stone upon the surface of a still lake, producing ripples that all of them felt. My conclusion, after consulting the minds of the ancestral sages and weighing all the variables involved, is clear. The time has not yet come for Excalibur to manifest itself fully in this material dimension. The level of humanity's collective consciousness has not yet reached the maturity necessary to interact with such an artifact of power without succumbing to the temptations of domination and control. The sword must be protected, safeguarded, maintained in a state of semi-manifestation where its presence may still subtly influence events without becoming an object of the greed that would unleash the horrible conflicts we have just witnessed. Nevem nodded thoughtfully, his fingers tracing the length of his long white beard. "And how do you propose we achieve this goal of keeping Excalibur simultaneously present yet hidden, influential yet inaccessible?" Iuda smiled, not with superficial joy, but with the deep satisfaction of one who has found an elegant solution to a complex problem. The answer lies in sacred geography and strategic positioning. There is a place, not very far from here by the measures that ordinary mortals use for distance, but on an energetic plane very different from this mountain sanctuary, a place where the conditions are ideal for what must be accomplished. I speak of the plains of Stonehenge. Upon hearing that name, Alexander felt a shock of recognition traverse his entire body like an inner lightning bolt. The circle of stones from the dream, the place where he had encountered the ancestor, now being named as a crucial element in the solution Iuda was proposing. It could not be coincidence. It never was. Iuda continued, "Stonehenge is a dimensional portal of extraordinary power, one of the astral magnetic centers of the earth where cosmic energies converge and can be channeled and directed by those with the knowledge and authority to do so. It is a place where the veils between dimensions are so thin that they can be crossed with relative ease by prepared consciousnesses. My proposal is that we march overland, all of us here present, and as many more as may wish to join this sacred migration, heading north toward the plains of Stonehenge. There, a few miles from the portal itself, yet still within its sphere of energetic influence, we will found a new Amesbury, a community that will serve multiple purposes simultaneously. It will be a physical home for all who choose to participate, offering fertile lands and spaces sufficient for every material creation. It will be an outpost of spiritual vigilance, guarding the approaches to the portal against those who would attempt to use it for selfish ends. And it will be a center of learning and initiation where sacred knowledge may be preserved and transmitted to future generations when humanity is ready to receive it. A pause carrying the weight of a proposal that exceeds logistics to enter the territory of mission. And Excalibur, when the moment is right, when the vibration of the bearer and the vibration of the sword resonate at the same frequency, may be summoned through the portal by the one who has been prepared to wield it. But that moment is not now. That moment will come when it is inevitable. And when it is inevitable, everything we are building now will have been its preparation. The new beginning and the promises ahead. Edith had grown increasingly silent throughout the entire assembly, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried that kind of emotion that is not weakness, but honesty, the courage to say what the heart feels in the face of decisions the heart knows must be taken in a way that hurts. But this means I would have to live days away from you, my beloved son. How could I bear such a separation after finally having found you again after so long? The tears did not wait for permission to run down her face, and in that absence of restraint, there was not weakness, but dignity. The dignity of one who does not pretend not to feel what they feel simply because what they feel is inconvenient for the moment. Everyone in the chamber felt Edith's pain as if it were their own, for who among them had not experienced at some moment the torturous conflict between duty and desire, between what must be done and what the heart longs for? Iuda crossed quickly the space that separated him from his mother and enveloped her in a tight embrace, allowing her to shed her tears against his chest while he stroked her hair with a tenderness that was not empty consolation, but genuine presence, the offering of himself as an anchor while the storm lasted. Dear mother, do you think I would allow you to remain so far away without having found a solution to so simple a problem, when we have managed to resolve far more complex enigmas? He drew Edith gently back so he could look directly into her eyes as he explained with a voice that promised not the impossible, but what he knew to be true. At the site of Stonehenge, there exists a magical portal, not in the sense of childish fantasy, but of advanced spiritual technology that our ancestors mastered and that a precious few still preserve the knowledge to operate. Through this portal, you will be able to travel instantaneously between Amesbury and these sacred mountains. In the blink of an eye, you will be able to be here with me whenever you wish, and I will be able to visit you with equal ease. Physical distance will be irrelevant, for we will be connected through dimensions that transcend material geography. The expression on Edith's face as this registered, relief and wonder and love, and the specific lightness of one who discovers that the separation they most feared was an illusion was breathtaking. A collective sigh of relief and admiration passed through the assembly. Nevem declared with the authority of decades of service to the sacred mysteries, "Iuda's proposal is wise and practically viable. As a consecrated druid and guardian of the ancestral traditions, I will offer my blessings for this new foundation. I will conduct the ceremonies necessary to consecrate the land, establish energetic protections around the community, and teach all who wish to learn the rudiments of living in harmony with the powerful energies of that sacred place." Hael spoke, "My sword will be in service of this just cause. I will protect the nascent community against material threats, while Nevem protects it against spiritual dangers, forming a complete defense on both planes of existence." Makeda and Amina offered their unique contributions: agricultural techniques, knowledge of sustainable architecture that would work in harmony with the natural energy lines of the site. Helena raised practical questions of logistics with that practicality that had always been her way of caring, because visions without execution are merely visions, and she had learned throughout the entire journey that the greatest purposes are realized one practical detail at a time. When the night had deepened and the deliberations had reached the point of robust consensus, Iuda pronounced the words that would close the assembly with that quality of closings that are also beginnings. "In the coming weeks, we will begin preparations for the Great Migration. Messengers will be sent to invite all those whose hearts resonate with this call to join us. We will force no one, for authentic spiritual journeys must always be undertaken voluntarily. But we will offer the opportunity to all who wish to participate in the founding of a community built upon sacred principles and living in conscious alignment with the cosmic energies that flow through that ancient portal." Alexander found himself walking through the contemplative gardens that surrounded the complex. The night fully settled and the stars shining with an intensity almost supernatural in the thin atmosphere of the high altitudes. He thought of the ancestor who had visited him in dream, initiating this chain of events that now culminated in decisions that would affect countless lives across generations to come. He felt deep gratitude for having been chosen as a catalyst, as a messenger between worlds and times, even as he recognized that the role carried with it responsibilities that had no precedent in anything he had faced before. Helena joined him silently, intertwining her fingers with his, and together they remained in quiet contemplation beneath the starlit canopy. Two ordinary human beings called to participate in extraordinary events, united by love and by a shared commitment to purposes that transcended their individual interests. The portal of Stonehenge awaited, the new Amesbury awaited, and Excalibur, kept in a cave outside of time, awaiting the bearer who would deserve it, awaited also with that patience of things that exist outside the linear flow of time, and that for that reason can wait without urgency for the moment that for them was always inevitable. In the next episode, the march towards Stonehenge begins, and with it, the gathering of all who have been summoned. Those who came from the sea, those who came from the land, those who came from the sky. The new Amesbury will begin to take shape not merely as a community, but as a living artifact, built with intention sufficient for that intention to become part of the structure, like those megalithic stones that Iuda described, selected not only for physical endurance, but for a mineral composition that resonates at specific frequencies. And when the first ceremonies of consecration of the new land are performed by Nevem beneath the open sky near the circle of Stonehenge, something that has been sleeping beneath that soil for ages beyond counting will stir faintly, like a sleeper who hears their name pronounced by the right voice after time enough for the sleep to have seemed permanent. Not Excalibur, not yet, but that which precedes the arrival of Excalibur, the recognition of the place, the recognition of the people, the confirmation that what was promised is being fulfilled. The cosmos, Alexander discovers, does not merely send visions and summonings. It also watches to see whether they were taken seriously.